and listening to us. My name is Felicia Antonio, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. In the next 1 hour, 30 minutes, we'll be discussing the topic, growing threats to democracy, weaponization of internet shutdowns during elections. Internet shutdowns are increasingly being used by governments across the world to silence dissenting voices and to deny people access to information during elections and other national events. This session will take a look at the incidents of shutdowns that have taken place over the past 1 year during elections and how civil society groups across the globe mobilized to push back. We have a list of experts as speakers here, and they are members of the Keep It On Coalition, which is a global network of organizations working to end internet shutdowns around the world, and other relevant stakeholders in the space. And so we'll have speakers sharing experiences and how they pushed back against internet shutdowns or how they supported the Keep It On community to fight and push back against internet shutdowns. We will have time for questions and answers. And so our audience, do feel free to drop in your questions in the chat button, and we'll make time to address all of them. And so I'm a campaigner and Keep It On lead at Access Now. And beginning of this year, we highlighted or identified 14 countries that were scheduled to have elections. And as we speak, 9 of such countries have shut down the internet during elections, while 2 did not. And we are yet to see what the other remaining countries would look like. And so it's more important than ever for us to have this conversation, to look at how civil society groups responded to these shutdowns, as well as what they have in preparation for elections that are yet to happen in the next couple of weeks, months, towards the end of the year. And so without much ado, I would like to call my speakers to introduce yourselves very briefly. You mention your name and let us know where you're joining us from, your organization and what you do. And then we dive into the conversation. So I'm handing over to Susan to take it away.
Thank you very much, Felicia, for having me on the panel. My name is Susan Mwape, and I'm from Zambia. I come from an organization known as Common Cause Zambia. We work in the area of governance, elections, social accountability, and gender. I hope this suffices. Am I supposed to say anything more?
We'll get to know more about you when you discuss your interventions during the shutdown. So thank you. All right, Manson, can you come over?
Yes, thank you, Felicia. Yeah, very briefly, my name is Manson Gwanyanya. I am based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I work for an organization called the Business and Human Rights Resource Center as their representative and researcher for Southern Africa and West Anglophone Africa. And thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. And I move to Hamza.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. So my name is Haider Hamziz. I'm from Iraq. I'm a founder of a network for digital rights, for Iraqi digital rights named INSIM Network. And I'm working in civil society since I was 14. So when I was a kid, I joined the civil society movement very early, since 2004. I'm very glad to be here, especially with the Internet Freedom Forum in Africa.
Thank you very much. And Alan, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sempala Alan Chigozi. I work with Unwanted Witness. It's a civil society organization based in Uganda, and we work at the interface of technology and human rights and law. We've been in existence for close to 10 years. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to share a lot of knowledge and to learn more today.
Thank you very much. Abdul Jalil, your turn.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So thank you so much, Felicia, for the invitation and for access now also. So who is Abdul Jalil? I'm the digital rights advocate in ICT here in Chad, based in Chad. And also I'm the founder of an organization called House of Africa. It's a not-profit organization based here in Chad to promote ICT, women capacity building, youth capacity building. And I'm also the convener of National IGF Chad here. So, and convener of Chadian School of Internal Governance also. So, yeah, thank you so much. Happy to be here to learn, to share also from others.
Thank you very much. We are missing one speaker. Shams, if you can hear me, I see your messages, but I don't see you here. The technical team, can you help me see what is happening?
She's in the attendee list. I think we need to make her a panelist so we can see her.
Okay. Tech team, can you please make
someone in the host? I think he needs to do that.
He's here already.
Hello? Can you see me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries at all. Okay, so you can just jump in and introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Felicia and the Keep It On team for the invitation and for having me today. So my name is Shems. I'm the Advocacy and Community Manager at Tunnel Bear VPN. So I sit on Tunnel Bear's dedicated internet freedom team. It's been really great for us over the past few years to work with the Keep It On community, and work closely with them on coordination with regards to internet shutdowns and making sure that VPN can be in the hands of folks during election periods or protests. And I'm looking forward to discussing how we can continue to collaborate with civil society on this type of work.
Thank you very much for the introductions. All right, so we're going to jump directly into our conversation for this afternoon. And I would like to start with Susan and Alan. You both have experienced internet shutdowns recently. So could you let us know some of the activities or actions you undertook in your respective countries, that is Zambia and Uganda, to engage authorities and internet users on issues of internet shutdowns prior to the elections? And how did people respond to the various shutdowns that happened in your countries? What strategies would you say were effective or not? And then, are there any post-election shutdowns engagements underway or being considered? That is a very loaded question, but then I would be grateful if you could respond and share as much information as possible so that our audience can also learn, and those that have elections coming up would also know how to respond to such situations. So over to you, Susan, and then Alan, you can jump in. I will give you 10 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Felicia. Good afternoon once again, everybody. And yes, indeed, that is a loaded question. So I come from Zambia, and we held our elections on 12th August. 2021, which was just last month. And we sadly had experienced internet shutdown, a partial internet shutdown in the country on election day. The internet was shut down around midday, election day, and was only restored 3 days later. In terms of the actions that we took to engage authorities, first of all, we already anticipated a shutdown. Unfortunately, my organization, Common Cause Zambia, is a member of the Keep It On campaign. So at the time that we were having elections, we were in conversation before election. A few months before election, we were in conversation with Access Now and the lead campaigner for Access Now, Felicia, discussing the upcoming elections and talking about how we were anticipating a shutdown. We anticipated the shutdown simply because just before election day, the government introduced 3 cyber laws. And the pace at which the laws were implemented was very worrying. It was too fast. There were a lot of outstanding issues within those issues within the proposed laws that we felt would be problematic, especially in the context of the upcoming election. But the government really pushed very hard and ensured that they were passed by Parliament into law. And then we knew that we had a problem because those laws were empowering different sectors who could easily make decisions that would affect the masses at the snap of a button. So with that in mind, we engaged with Keep It On, and it was from there that we collaborated with the Keep It On campaign. And so the first thing that we did was we had a meeting, and then we were fortunate to have been trained on how to use some of the circumvention tools that were quite secure. We were given VPNs and also trained on how to use the UNI measurement tool. For those that don't know what UNI is the Open Observatory for Network Interference. And they have a tool that measures the accessibility of the internet or not. And I'd like to say here that whilst the tool was very useful on election day, it was also very useful for us prior to election day, because we noticed that from time to time, the internet would slow down extremely. It wasn't a shutdown, but it was as though they were testing how they would shut it down or whatever. So for the longest time, we noticed that it would be extremely slow. You couldn't send messages on WhatsApp. Facebook was struggling to load. And even just the general network on the phone in terms of making phone calls was problematic. So we used the tool to measure, and constantly we're able to see the fluctuations in terms of when it was normal and when it was not normal. So from there, we also did, we wrote an open letter to the president of the former president now of the Republic, urging him to keep the internet on. We also engaged some of the other stakeholders, such as the internet service providers, the mobile service providers, the legal fraternity, and all the people that we thought were actually connected to ensuring that the internet was running smoothly. Following the letter that we issued and also publicly shared, we heard from the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Information, who began talking about the issue of internet shutdowns. He talked about how they had no such things were going to happen, that whoever was talking about it was alarming. But a few days before election day, he actually threatened that government would shut down the internet if people continue to misuse it. Now, this is coming from a country that has had a very problematic civic space. We've, over the years, been experiencing a shrinking civic space where most of the laws that we had, especially with the previous regime, were stifling dissent. First of all, they were largely using COVID as an excuse to prevent people from gathering. And for those that come from Africa, you will agree with me that elections are a very communal thing. Once you are in campaign period, people are doing campaigns, rallies, there are people dancing, people are gathering on the streets and being very social. These are very social events. And those are the platforms within which political parties use to express themselves, share their manifestos, and also just generally talk about what plans they have. So COVID was being used as an excuse to, prevent people from gatherings. And I say it was being used as an excuse because when you look at it at face value, with COVID, you don't want large crowds to prevent the spread of the disease. But whilst on the political front, through the Electoral Commission of Zambia, they said they banned campaign rallies. Yet we saw the government, the president, ministers going out to launch different initiatives with large scores of people that almost look like political rallies in themselves. And so it was selectively applied. And then when that changed, so some of the political parties decided to do drive shows where the candidate would get into a car with a megaphone announcing what they're doing. But this also brought about mobs of people who would follow those road shows. And so they were just mobile rallies in the end, because at a point you'd find that all the roads were blocked, these people were stuck in the middle, and that too was banned. So the civic space for engagement was very slim. Civil society was not being allowed to meet, to convene, to discuss. And now we had an internet. So most of the activities that everybody was using shifted to online platforms. We began to use the internet for publicity. We began to use the internet for even virtual rallies. One of the things that was very popular in Zambia at the time was virtual rallies, because that is how they could access people. But even then, that was rather elitistic, especially when you look at the infrastructure that we have in terms of accessibility to the internet, the number of users who have smartphones and can use the internet. It was a limiting factor in itself. And then further, we also experienced something that we felt was somehow connected to, destabilizing how people access the internet. And that was just power outages. Electricity would go all the time. Unnecessary disruptions of power that could not be explained. And those we felt were just some of the tactics that were being used to shut down the internet. So on election day, which was on 12th August, in the morning, scores of people loaded up. There was a lot of things that were going out that were being reported on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp groups, and things like that. By noon, the internet was shut down, and it was a partial shutdown in the sense that they switched off WhatsApp. You could not use WhatsApp. People could still access Facebook, but prior to that, we had trained a number of people on using circumvention tools, such as the VPNs that we had learned from the Keep It On movement. And also we had shared the UNI tool with a whole number of stakeholders that we trained prior to that. So in terms of citizen engagement, we did some orientation before election day, preparing them for the looming shutdown that we thought would be coming. We disseminated the tools both through training and also just publicly as flyers and little messages, that bite-sized messages that we shared largely on WhatsApp groups that people are on, and we encourage people to share those. And also we had a physical and an online exhibition before the election period, talking about the internet shutdowns, getting views from people on how they would be affected should that happen, sharing and disseminating the tools at the same online exhibition, which we conducted at an art gallery, which was at a shopping mall, one of the largest shopping malls in the country. And then the exhibition itself went on from before the election day, through election day, until after the election day, where we also, through that platform, were able to hear testimonies and stories from people on how they had been affected by the partial shutdown, and also, the impact on them, whether it related to their work or just personally as an individual. We took that. And the training in itself had a very overwhelming response, because like I said earlier, the cyber laws that have been created or were very worrisome to everyone. So we had over 150 people who applied to attend. We trained over 70 people from civil society, representatives, journalists. We collaborated with the BBC Media Action and the Media Institute for Southern Africa. They shared their databases of media personnel from across the countries, from community media to the mainstream media to commercial media. We had them all on board. We also trained some citizens and also activists, the frontline defenders, students. We were not very selective in terms of who, we didn't limit who we shared the tools with, because we thought it to be important for everybody to be aware on how to use VPNs especially. We even had a practical training session where we showed people how to use the different tools. We did not use one, we used several tools that we shared, because we thought, should anything happen, people can have backup. And that we realized much later on, after the partial shutdown, that it was a very good move, because when the internet shutdown happened, Facebook was open. So people started sharing those tools publicly, telling everyone that if you cannot access the internet, download this and you can access the internet this way. So when those messages were coming up a lot on Facebook, some of the VPNs were shut down, and we're able to monitor those using the UNI tool again. We were able to see which VPNs had been shut down that could not be used. Tunnel Bear came up with a very good initiative where they announced that they were giving free, they had increased the bandwidth which people could use the internet here. So I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation from Shams in terms of how that worked with the Zambian community when we had the shutdown. So those are some of the key. Yes.
Susan, you would come in again to share, to like highlight more on the actions, but because of time, I would want to let Alan in to also share his experience from Uganda, and then as we get to the end, I will let you come back again. But thank you very much for the insightful information you've shared with us. So over to you, Alan.
Hello, everyone, again. My name is Sempala Alan, and like I introduced myself earlier, I am the head of Legal and Programs at Unwanted Witness. Now, we did a couple of activities and engagements before, during, and after elections, which oversaw the biggest internet shutdown in the country. Earlier on, we had shutdowns in the previous elections, but they were not as serious as these were. A couple of applications were disabled then in 2016, but this time round, it was a full-blown internet shutdown which affected almost every corner of the economy. Now, before the elections, around December 9th, 2020, we anticipated that government would really be, there would be high chances of government effecting an internet shutdown. So we started a couple of engagements with the telecom regulator, UCC. We had a couple of engagements with the legislators. We had a couple of engagements with CSOs, basically to help us find a way. How best can we help government understand that as we are heading to the 2021 elections, internet shutdown or a total internet shutdown would not be the way to go, because then it has many effects that would come with it beyond just misinformation. So if you do a total shutdown, it would be an issue of hammer, killing a mosquito using a hammer. So and true to it, in December, around 9th December 2020, government of Uganda through the country's telecom regulator, UCC, wrote to Google, okay, and they requested them to block 14 YouTube channels, mainly targeting opposition political members. These were channels that were being used because, again, just like it was in Zambia, here government tried to use COVID, okay, to restrict people coming together and assemble. And really, by the time you allow elections to prevail, then by virtue of elections and African culture, you'll expect people to come together, just like it is elsewhere. So by the time you allow elections to prevail, then you have to expect people coming together. Then you have to bear with the consequences. That means that you assess the consequences, and the economy or the country is willing to go and handle those consequences. So, but when you allow elections, then you stop people converging, there is a problem. So that happened. People were restricted, they are not converging. So opposition political parties, our own members, resorted to using online channels, using different digital platforms, because even the Independent Electoral Commission had indicated that the elections are going to be digital. So that indicated that political party members can use, or politicians can use, several digital platforms, radios, online platforms, to reach out to the masses and have their messages delivered out there. But what happened is that when they started using the digital platforms, these digital platforms received a lot of attention, and people followed them. So people would know what would happen in real time in the different areas that a political party, opposition political members would be. So this also scared, excuse me, that this scared the powers that be, and there was no way they would control people following, because now events would be followed in real time. So issues of human rights, beating up people, they would be understood, they would be seen. So that way government would not deny, because before, without the digital platforms, the different social media platforms, there would be a lot of human rights violations, and government would deny. Police or security operatives would deny. But with these digital platforms, it helped bring all this to record, so people would know, they would not be denying. So that in a way affected the powers that be, and they found ways of curtailing that, stopping it. And the one possible way was to write to YouTube or Google or Alphabet, for that reason, to block 14 channels of opposition-leaning members. So when we noticed this, together with other organizations, we wrote to Google and asked them to really consider human rights when taking these decisions. Google has a policy, they have a community policy that they follow while looking for information that in a way mobilizes riots, mobilizes
I have lost Alan. Is it the same for everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear him too.
Yes.
Okay. Let's give him a few seconds. Oh, we move to Abdul, and then if he comes back, we hand over to him. Okay.
Hi everyone.
So
yes. Okay.
So Abdul, you are from Chad, and
Yes.
surprisingly, the internet did not shut down during elections, because Chad is known for disrupting internet access during important national events. So I'm wondering, could you let us know what happened in April? And then also tell us what engagements you had with the authorities with regards to keeping it on. And if there are any lessons you would want to share with us, please feel free to add that. It's similar to Susan and Alan's question, but then in this case, we are looking at a situation where an internet shutdown did not happen.
Okay. Thank you so much, Felicia, for having me here and for giving me the speech. So as you know, my name is Abdul. I'm coming from Chad, and as Felicia says, that it was the first time that during the presidential elections that there's no internet shutdown. So I think that we need to congratulate you, to congratulate our keep it on team and access now, because we worked together and we did a lot of things before the election, and after that this campaign had an impact. We showed the impact, and because as you said now that Chad had the experience and cutting internet, So since 2016 election, so we have a cut internet, not social media, but cut internet. There's no access to internet. And after this election, it was in 2018. Also, we have experiences a long cutting internet history. It was 1 year and a half. So it was cutting social media only. It's WhatsApp, Facebook. So in this time, most of people in chat experienced to use the first time to use VPN. So until now, most of people had the VPN. It says that they cannot delete the VPN in their phone. So they don't know one day the one can cut internet. So it was very challenging the past two years for cutting social media. So, and that push most of people, Chadian people, because Jamena city is near to Cameroon, and most of people using Cameroon operator telecommunication to connect, and it was very cheaper, and it was very close to capital city. So most of people use the Cameroon network. And after that, the government says that when you cut the internet, it's economical disequilibrium also, because it's when you cut the internet, it had behind this finance, and the operator cannot operate, and that's no traffic, people cannot pay, and it's very hard. And after that, we put some campaign also say that the government that cutting internet is not the solution. The solution is to educate people to be online as offline, because internet nowadays is like water, and it's a human being. And it was very challenging this period. And after that, the last time that, last but not at least time, it was during the, not the election, but before the election, they have a period to do the deposit of candidacy. And one of the Chadian leaders, opposition leaders called Yaya Dilo, he sent his to run to be the president in president's election. And after he runs, the government sent the military at his house. He has to arrest him. And after that, there's many people was killed. I think that his mom and his son and two of his relatives. So because the government need to arrest him, because as you know, it's the first time to have someone coming from same area of the presidential executive. No, same area. So the president says that it's very challenging. And you know, the people around the presidents, they are coming from the same city. So they say that why not to decide to arrest these leaders of opposition. And after that, he wants outside the country, because we had some of his family inside the system. So they sent him outside Chad. And his mom was died. After that, the United Nations, the African Union sent a message to government saying that it's not, the election must be open to all the people. And during this day, they cut in 3 days internet, not the social media, but internet. They cut the internet, and it was very challenging. My personal experience, it was, I traveled to Cameroon, as to say that Cameroon is not so far from Chad, to connect there, to send the email, and start to do some stuff. And it was not easy. And after that, we say, why not to prevent? Because we see this, and as Susan said, we have the same culture. And the government says that if you need to do campaign for the opposition, you need to have the approval, official approval for the Minister of Security. And it was very challenging. When we say them, say that, no, we have COVID-19, so we cannot give you the authorization. And for the president, it's allowed. So he can say without authorization. So it was very challenging. And after that, we began to do this campaign with Access Now team. and with Felicia also, she let the keep it on. She contact us, why not to partner and to do something, because we see something can arrive to chat, because it's the first step. There is the opposition. After that, they cut the internet. And we write open letter to the president of Chad, and I was the head of state, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Security, the mobile operator, and the civil society, and other people. So we sent this letter online, and after that, we sent to them to their office. And some of the operator in background, they contact us, say that it's very good, because sometimes the government sends them the letter to cut the internet without have the object why to cut the internet. And for them, it's the business also. And it was very good for them to have a civil society who advocate for that. And after we send this message, we say cutting the internet is not solution. We need to educate people. But the election must be open, because some of opposition leaders are very young and they use the internet to pass, to send the message, because the public television cannot allow them to have some time to say. So it was very difficult. And after that, I think that the campaign had the results. So we need to congratulate how the people keep it on. And until now, we see with the government how to review the different law of telecommunication in Chad here, and to put the consumer right, the internet user right, as in the center of the discussion. So we keep it with them, and so we have a good partnership with them now. So after this campaign, they contact us, and we are on the table now. We are on the table, we discuss with them. I think that sometimes we need to put pressure, because when they send the open letter, they see all the organization of the world. I think that 100 something like this organization who signs this. For them is very big, because they need to protect the image of the regime, the image of the country, and after that say that we cannot cut the internet. But after that, we did some campaign with the name of the organization, and we continue to do this. And after that, we planify this week to do the first edition of Cyber Security Day, to teach people about social media, how to use. And during this campaign, we train some people also how to use some VPN tools for access now. So I think that it was first time that we have the election without cutting the internet. Yes. So I need to stop there. So thank you so much, Felicia.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's great to see that the government did not shut down the internet during elections. And one thing that we've noticed is that once a government disrupts the internet, they are likely to do it again. And so when we identify countries that we are planning campaigns or going to work around elections, and we look at that, has the government shut down the internet before? How is the current digital space in the country? So for the case of countries that prior to elections, you start seeing all kinds of legislation being passed, all in the name of protecting civic discussions. At the same time, we know that it's not to protect anyone, but then it's to repress dissent. And so that is why it's important for us to work together to be able to identify these countries and then engage with the various stakeholders to prevent an internet shutdown from happening. And I think, as you said, it's great for their image if a government doesn't shut down the internet, because once you shut it down, you are in the books of the Keep It On community. We would mention you every day, every time that the issue of internet shutdowns comes up. Whether you do it once or even for 1 hour, we will still cite you as a country that has shut down the internet. Okay. A lot of the speakers, Alan, Abdul Jalil, and Susan have mentioned virtual private networks, VPNs. And so we have Shams here to tell us more about how Tunnel Bear is supporting people to circumvent shutdowns, and what windows of opportunity are there for us to strengthen collaboration and partnership with Tunnel Bear, as well as the individuals that work on internet shutdowns. And then what trends are you observing in your quest to support netizens? Are your products and services also being targeted in any way as you work to prevent or to protect or to enable people to circumvent and bypass these increasing acts of repression? So over to you, Shams. Can you educate us on that?
Thank you, Felicia. So yes.
Alan, sorry, Alan is back. Alan, sorry, we lost you, and so I had to move on. So once you're back, can you just, I'll give you like 3 minutes to wrap up. Is that too little? Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, I can
sorry
do
about
5
that.
minutes.
I hope it wasn't another shutdown in Uganda.
Okay, so Shams, you come after Alan. Is that okay?
Okay, I was
Absolutely.
basically taking us through the letter we wrote to Google, and we succeeded. Those platforms by the different opposition political parties were not blocked. So in that we scored as organizations, as the organizations that are wrote to Google. Now, eventually it was disrupted. Eventually we had a shutdown in Uganda, and many people are disenfranchised. Journalists, the business people, the education sector, most of the sectors, because internet, just like elsewhere in the world, in Africa, it's so ingrained in our activities in Uganda. It's so ingrained in our lives. You can hardly think of anything you do without the need for internet. You can hardly think of any business that can start without internet. In fact, internet is a factor of production. These days, those days, when one would start business, the factors of production including capital, land, power, and all that stuff. Now, there is no way, I can hardly think of any business sector or any business that you can start without the need for internet. So internet has to be on the table as one of those things we talk about. And if you have a reliable internet supply or penetration or accessibility in your economy, many multinationals look at the penetration to determine whether the business will be feasible or they will be able to operate in your economy. So when the shutdown happened, a lot of people are disenfranchised. Many youngsters, young entrepreneurs in Uganda have moved away from the mortar and brick shops, okay, downtown, because of the rent. The rent is up in the skies. So many of them had put their shops on the online platforms, the social media platforms. So when that was shut down, many of them lost businesses, many of them lost contracts. So when it happened, a lot was disenfranchised. Us, the citizens, who needed to hear from the political participants, we wanted to know who is offering what and what are they saying. That would help us make an informed decision. So chances are, whatever decision was made wasn't informed. Yeah, so I'm sure many people made uninformed decisions because they didn't have access to internet. They didn't have access to information. Yeah, so a lot of them were disenfranchised, but we specifically, because just like it is elsewhere in Africa, we lack data, we lack information on how dangerous is internet shutdowns. How does it affect the different sectors? So what we started doing as Unwanted Witness, we are going to be doing more research. We went into research to research about how internet disenfranchised the journalists, the media fraternity, because when the shutdown happened, then that increased the cost of production for journalists. So we did a report, which report you can find at the on the Unwanted Witness website. You can find it there. It's called Journalism Blocked. Journalists blocked. Come again. I beg your pardon. The report is called Journalism Blocked and Information Seized. So a lot of information from journalists was seized. The cost of production went all-time high, but also the the time taken to deliver quality information was very long. Then that gave a gap and a loophole for misinformation to flow. You know, so you can find that information, that research on our website. But what we did, we also went to court. We went to court because we believe our courts have a part to play in shaping the practice of how government handles internet shutdowns. So we went to court, and that court case is ongoing. We want court to pronounce itself on the actions of government. Now, this will go a long way in helping in how government will deal with internet shutdowns going forward, because their argument is that they are preventing misinformation, wrong information, fake information that different people use on the different platforms. So we are saying you can still deal with misinformation and disinformation in a rather reasonable way that doesn't disenfranchise any other part of the economy or doesn't disenfranchise any human rights. So we went to court, and we believe that we'll get some results from that. Now, you see, with internet shutdowns, civil society organizations or any other entities should use a lot of approaches. It shouldn't be only one approach. So it's in good interest for us if we are to help our governments appreciate. We can go to court, we can do advocacy, we can do all kinds of things. But what we think as unwanted witness is that also the people who who govern us have not really appreciated the need for internet. They don't see internet beyond Facebook and Twitter, because they see Facebook and Twitter as a threat, like it happened in Zambia, in Nigeria. They would rather shut down the entire internet without even reasoning and thinking how else it's going to affect the economy and any other sector in the country. So that is very important. But also one thing we do as we are hoping to do as Unwanted Witness, especially this week. This week, Unwanted Witness is launching a program. We are launching a program called Open Digital Tools. And this program seeks to develop state-of-the-art digital tools for vulnerable communities in Africa. Now, the program uses findings from research, because we are big on research. We usually get approaches through informed research, bespoke research, and surveys. So this research and surveys carried out throughout the continent to identify most of these common problems faced by the vulnerable communities. And these devices or technologies that we want to start developing will be solving some of those challenges. Now, specifically, the device we have developed, this device is a web app for the visually impaired, and this is intended to make notifications to the visually impaired, because you see, these persons with disabilities
Alan, can
Yes?
you wrap up in a few seconds?
Okay,
and then we'll come back to you. And then feel free to share the resources you mentioned in the chat so that our audience can have them. Thank you.
Awesome, I'm going to do that. So this internet tool that we have developed, we are going to launch it on the 30th of this month, and it's called NetDance, a network internet disruption app that will help the visually impaired in knowing which platforms are not working, which platforms are blocked. Because many times when the internet shutdown happens, many of these visually impaired people are left to the dogs. They're left with no option. So we are developing this app. It's the NetDance, and this app will go a long way in sorting out the persons with disabilities. So internet blockage and shutdowns such as the ones we've had in Zambia and Africa and in Uganda have further excluded these guys, the persons with the disabilities, from accessing the internet, thereby widening the digital divide. So furthermore, internet shutdown devastates their lives. Okay, so with this NetDance app, it will go a long way in including them, in them being not left down. And we think that if it is accepted, embraced by different organizations in Africa, this will go a long way in helping these people, because many times they're left behind. So as I'm closing this submission, we believe that let's use the different approaches as CSOs. But one thing that has so far not worked in Uganda, which has somewhat worked in Africa, I saw it worked in Ghana, it has worked in Zimbabwe, where civil society organizations took government to court, and court pronounced itself that the act of shutting down internet is illegal and unconstitutional. So we believe it will happen, but in Uganda it hasn't so far worked. Courts so far have been manipulated, and we've not been able to get serious judgments from court. But nevertheless, we can't wail and stop going to court. We'll still go to court. We believe that we will have probably sober judges who will one time look at the seriousness of internet shutdowns and their effects, and have court pronounce itself on the illegal and unconstitutionality of these shutdowns. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And you've already given your recommendations or highlights, but then we'll come back to that later in the discussion, and we'll look forward to the launch of this very important tool that Unwanted Witness has put together. Very relevant for the community. All right, Shams, back to you. Tell us.
Thank you. So I'm going to first touch on the way that TunnelBear as a VPN provider has been working to support folks that are experiencing internet shutdowns. So I want to start from sort of the very beginning of our journey with this. TunnelBear realized the importance of VPN in the fight against online disruptions and blockages from the very early days. This started in 2013 when we gave users in Turkey during the Gezi protests free bandwidth to use our service. And this sort of happened almost by accident. We saw that there was a huge spike in TunnelBear usage from the country, traced it down to there being a greater need for VPN because of social media blockages. And then we gave the free bandwidth. So it was a little bit ad hoc, it was a little bit accidental, but then that pattern repeated on and on again. And what would start to happen is that then we would start to experience blockages ourselves, or we would become the targets of technical blocking after we give this free bandwidth to folks in a certain country to use TunnelBear. So then engineers would work around the clock to unblock us and give people access to the VPN, which worked great, but it was very much this repetitive cat and mouse game. And we wanted to get away from that, to go about things in a much more intentional and structured way. So over the past year, actually it was early last year, we launched our dedicated internet freedom team, which I sit on. And the team works through this 4-stage model. And the 4-stage model lays out the different ways in that technical blocking or VPN blocking can happen. So like the different ways that states can approach blocking VPN when they see lots of folks using it. And our engineers work through that. But so the goal of the team is more than just that. First and foremost, it is for the engineers to build circumvention technology into the TunnelBear app on our service so that it's well equipped to handle these different censorship attempts that we have seen over the years. So, and this also helps us be a better experience for users going through partial shutdowns. So the second goal is to do this by listening to the feedback of the internet freedom community, of the people here today, and to also coordinate with civil society to get VPN in the hands of more folks that need it. So the first program we launched to deal with this is a VPN distribution program that we have called the NGO Support Network. So this is where we act as a supplier of VPN accounts, and civil society members, including Access Now and other folks, act as distributors of VPN to their activist communities. So we can make sure that folks doing the frontline work and advocating against internet shutdowns are well equipped with their own digital security tools. The second program is called the Bandwidth Program. And this is where we have scaled up the activity that we used to do, which is where we used to provide sort of ad hoc free bandwidth. And now we provide bandwidth to countries experiencing partial internet shutdowns during either election periods or protests automatically. And we do much of this by coordinating with folks like Alicia and other folks within the internet freedom community who keep us in the loop about certain events that may trigger the need for bandwidth support or greater VPN bandwidth. So Zambia is obviously a recent example of this. When we heard that the Zambia election was coming up, we prepared free bandwidth to use the TunnelBear service. And then when this happened, we saw there was a huge spike in TunnelBear usage. which was really, really great. And of course, especially when there was a social media shutdown, that number started to rise. But I will say this actually taught us a huge lesson in terms of what we could be better at in terms of community coordination, because even though we did prepare the bandwidth support ahead of time, we could have done it many weeks ahead of time, and also done a little bit more in the realm of public education, which I'm really glad was touched on, and sort of prepare materials about what VPN can be used for, what it protects you against and what it doesn't, so that more folks can be prepared and have VPN on hand, for example, in Zambia before the election period, when the panic sets in, when the shutdown sets in. So that is actually something that we did learn from that event, but that is an example of the way that we would be providing bandwidth support when there's an election coming up, or a potential shutdown that we have flagged. Something else that we do as part of the bandwidth program is provide regular reporting to our community partners about when we see that states are trying to block Tunnel Bear, and the technical means in which they plan on they have tried to do it, just so that researchers and academics and also digital security trainers have evidence points of attempts of online censorship, which hopefully helps them in their research and their own community coordination with their community. And of course, because we do this type of reporting, this has allowed us to observe some trends in the way that online censorship is happening, or the way that it's been approached lately. So from a technical perspective, while we can pretty confidently say that the most common way censors target Tunnel Bear, and perhaps even other VPN providers, is API blocking. So they will just try and block the VPN domain. When they see that we have been able to circumvent that, they will go to things like employing deep packet inspection. And we have seen a rise in this. So this is a tool that's used to analyze different types of internet traffic so that they can fingerprint it and then block that specific type of traffic. And then another thing we're seeing is that states are increasingly trying to block different connection protocols, for example, things like OpenVPN and the like. So this is stuff we're constantly trying to get around by building different circumvention capabilities and working through a framework to better equip our service to deal with these different kinds of tactics, like I said before. But it is something that I think is really important to note, that if they do see that we're able to successfully circumvent, they go to another tactic and sort of go back and forth in between them. So we are seeing a little bit more dedication from censors in that sort of technical way. And in terms of windows to strengthen collaboration between civil society and VPN providers, 100%. There's, I think, tons that can happen. From the VPN provider perspective, one thing I want to shout out to is that Felicia has been incredibly helpful in keeping us in the loop about election dates and different important dates that are on her radar and others' radar. So we can prepare these free bandwidth for our users ahead of time, or even distribute free VPN accounts to activists that are working on the ground. So thank you very much for that. More of that from other folks is always very, very helpful. There is also always room to add civil society folks as distributors of Tunnel Bear to their activist community, so digital defenders can stay safe while advocating against internet shutdowns. And in general, I want to say outreach to civil society networks is always wonderful. Getting the word out there, whether it is through social media or more formal partnership announcements, what have you, tends to start this word of mouth chain, which eventually gets VPN into the hands of more people, which we always love to see. I want to touch on public education again, because public education about this type of work and the importance of digital security tools is very important. We have spent a lot of time at Tunnel Bear thinking about how to talk to our users and how to talk to our wider community, because things like circumventing shutdowns and talking about digital policy even are not always accessible material to just anyone online. So we've launched a content series where we tell the stories of folks who've experienced shutdowns to sort of humanize the experience and take it away from being this big abstract thing that's happening from like somewhere very far away, and sort of get people thinking about things like not just the numbers behind it, but also, you know, a story of someone who was really concerned when there were all these protests going on. They weren't able to contact their family and tell them they're safe. Like, these are important things that we want to tell our users and tell folks so they can understand the importance of digital security tools just for the day-to-day things, right? As well as just advocacy. And, you know, there will be one about Zambia coming up, so stay tuned for that one. And lastly, in terms of, you know, windows for collaboration, general feedback and insight into issues on the ground is extremely helpful. We obviously do our best to keep track of issues that warrant VPN support or a certain type of advocacy, but at the end of the day, civil society experts, digital security trainers, the researchers, those types of folks are the ones that really best understand what's happening on the ground because of your connections with people experiencing things firsthand. So having that context and having open dialogue channels with folks has been incredibly helpful to us. So more of that is always really wonderful. Yeah, I would say that's about it for me.
Thank you very much for your submission. And it's always great to have you always ready to support the community, with, especially under the bandwidth program. And I do agree that it's very streamlined now, and it makes our work and collaboration very easy to navigate. So thank you so much, and we appreciate the support that you give the community. Okay, Manson, you're welcome. I'm coming to you now. Telecom companies and internet service providers are complicit in shutting down the internet. How is the Business and Human Rights Resource Center covering this aspect of pushing back against internet shutdowns? And through other conversation, we've seen how important collaboration is. So how are you collaborating with partners and stakeholders to end, working to end internet shutdowns? And if you could use specific countries or initiatives that your organization has undertaken in the fight against internet shutdowns, it will be helpful for our audience to understand the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Felicia. My network is a bit of a problem, so I hope it's okay that I leave my video switched off. I hope that you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, look, I don't really want to take too much time speaking about these issues. A lot of what I wanted to say has really been touched upon here and there amongst the colleagues that spoke before me. So I would really just like to focus maybe on I would really want to do maybe one of three things in the short time that I've been given. And the first item that I want to do is to discuss really the role of the resource center in general when it comes to issues of business and human rights violations. And just to speak directly to what Felicia has asked, to say what has been our contribution really in terms of trying to hold internet companies, internet service providers and telecommunications companies accountable for when they engage in such behaviors. Sometimes they'll be really complicit, sometimes it's really not necessarily always in their hands. And then lastly, I'll probably just speak to the question of how we try to collaborate with partners and give examples of what we really want to see happening in a better world, and maybe just give an example of one or two instances where we have had to deal with these issues. So let me just very, very, very briefly, Felicia, if I may, just speak to the role of the business and human rights in general. We basically just exist to ensure that corporations, companies, any form of companies in any sector is held accountable for allegations or for human rights violations. So that could be in mining, it could be in telecommunications as what we are discussing today, or any other sector in the agricultural sector and so forth. So that's where we come in when it comes to these issues of trying to hold companies accountable. Now, we come from the point of view that when an internet shutdown takes place, it is generally the internet companies or the internet service providers, the telecommunications companies, which have the final say in the switching off of the electricity. Of course, with the African experience, and I'm speaking from an African perspective, is that what we have noticed is that most of these internet shutdowns really take place either during an election or during some form of civil unrest or protest action. So what you then discover is that the decision to turn off the internet is not always it's never generally really taken by the telecommunications companies themselves. It's I think in 99%, if not all the cases, it is a directive that has come from the government in question or politicians who are in charge. So what then happens is that the role of the companies in question is sort of depleted in that they are given an order by someone at the top, maybe the Minister of Telecommunications of that particular country, to say turn off the internet. And because these companies really want to protect their investments and they don't want their license cancelled and so forth, you find that in certain instances, they really don't have much of a say. But what we then do as the resource center is try and highlight these issues to these companies in question to say, you know, you in certain instances, you really do not have an obligation to obey unlawful orders. What we generally do is what we call a company response mechanisms when an internet shutdown takes place, asking the company to sort of provide reasons of why it has done that, what role it has played. And really in many instances where these companies do respond, they basically say we have received an order or a directive from some form of, from government officials. So that really then complicates how much responsibility we then can place on the companies. But when I speak to some of the solutions and how we then we work with partners, I think I'll highlight how we try and encourage companies to sort of resist some of these unlawful orders from governments. But really what the point that I want to direct there is, it's difficult to manage the conduct of companies mainly because they are under immense pressure and under threat from the government of the day or from politicians to speak. So what will generally happen is when we do a company response, maybe for example MTN, they'll simply say, look, we also do not want to shut the internet down, but this is an order that has came from above. And in some instances, they actually want to litigate to sort of refuse or sort of find some form of legal precedent to say that that has not happened. I mean, this was the case in Kenya when Orange, we wrote a letter to Orange asking them to respond why they switched off their internet. And they basically issued a press statement indirectly apologizing to its consumers and saying that, you know what, we are taking legal action against the government because they've sort of given us an illegal direction. Another experience we had was in the DR Congo and in partnership with the Keep It Coalition. I think just before the elections in, I'm trying to remember, 2021, we had written about 3 letters to service providers there, MTN, Orange, and so forth, a joint letter with Keep It On Coalition, asking them to ensure that there won't be any internet shutdown. Unfortunately, we did not get a response from the companies in question. And just in March 2021, in the Congo, they did go ahead and switched off the internet, sorry, which really just goes to show how much, how sort of the companies not having too much of a say in this, because we're trying to preempt to ask the government and the companies involved to provide some form of assurance that there won't be no internet shutdown. But still that happened. I mean, most recently in Eswatini, when there was some form of political uprising, pro-democracy protest there, again, MTN was ordered by the Eswatini government to switch off the internet. And they really said that they are really challenging this in court. You know, they were also of the opinion that that should not happen. And really, if we really speak to general experience that we've had at the resource center, particularly in Africa, is that some companies in these instances also don't want to switch off their internet. I mean, that is their business. So if you switch off the internet for 3 days, some of these companies would have lost quite a substantial amount of revenue. So the only thing maybe is trying as civil society and maybe as companies to find solutions such that they will be able to resist some of these directives as and when they do happen, which sort of then leads me to the question of what we would want to do, what we would want to see happening, or some form of solution that we think can be put in place by both the companies, by civil society, when these threats of internet shutdowns happen. And really what we encourage these companies to do, even when we write to them or we open letters are sent to them and we highlight some of these issues on our website as a way of putting pressure on the companies to resist this unlawful, in our view. I mean, I also have to mention that there are certain instances where it could be justified to have those internet shutdowns, particularly maybe where there's a threat of terrorism and so forth. But really our experience is that in most instances, it's really unjustified. It's just a political tool that is used to ensure that you suppress the rights of citizens and so forth. And so what we always try to encourage companies through civil society that we work with is to ensure that they maybe have some form of transparency or policy in place that indicates how and when they'll switch off the internet. We have encouraged companies in the past to actually, although I mean none of these initiatives have really paid off at this stage, to actually litigate in instances so that you can get the judiciary in states where we still have a strong judiciary to pronounce upon these issues, because we are of the view really that almost all of these internet shutdowns that have taken place within the African context are illegal in terms of international law, as well as in the majority of cases, they are also against the respective constitutions of the countries that they would have happened. Because many of these have happened in countries where we actually have strong constitutions. But again, it's a matter of, it's then a question of, do we have strong institutions to implement some of those constitutional rights that exist for the citizens? So we really request companies to encourage companies to have some form of policies that will be transparent. Yes, have I taken too much of my time?
Yes, I'll have to let Hamza come in briefly, but I think you made your points very much. You highlight them very well, and you've already started with some recommendations. Looking at the time, Hamza, please come in and make your submission, and you can include your recommendation in your submission. And then let's see what time we'll have. And then our cherished audience, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box and I'll make sure we respond to them before we end the session. So for Hamza's, Iraq has elections in a few weeks, not next week. And so can you tell us how INSEM network is preparing to prevent or respond to a shutdown throughout the period? So I'll give you 5 minutes.
Great, I thought I will have 1 minute. Thanks, Felicia.
No.
First of all, thanks for my fellow speakers for sharing their experience. I really learned from them, and thanks for Shams also for offering her service. I remember she helped us before during the protest 2019, also with providing some helpful tips and VPNs for Iraqis to keep access to block size and to protect their data. And thankful for that. As you know, that there is around 850 shutdowns documented over 10 years by Access Now. Only in 2016, there is around 768 shutdown in 2016. And there is around 213 shutdowns in 2019 in 33 countries only. So imagine hundreds of shutdowns happening. That's mean there is kind of, I can say, a strategic tool of weaponizing the shutdowns during not just election, not just during the protest, even during final exams, as we see in the Middle East, like Jordan, like Iraq, as an example. And recently, Ministry of Education in Iran announced that shutdown internet was a successful strategic tool to prevent cheating in final exams. So imagine preventing millions of Iraqis, not just in Iraq, even in northern Iraq. I mean, in Kurdistan region, they are doing that. So imagine preventing millions of people access to internet just to solve a tiny problem. And even with shut down the internet, still the question leaked to the students. So that's mean it's not useful to do that. And the issue is not from the tool itself. It's from the corruption and the humans who they work inside the Ministry of Education. But always it's a good, when it comes to the protest, usually they use this term of that we are trying to protect the voter or protect the protest from disinformation, protect the voter from misleading news. So that's why we shut down the internet during the election. And that's wrong, because we discovered that the rumors level increased when the internet shut down, because people, they will be scared. They want to access to the information so they can know what's happening around instead of hearing rumors from the community. If they don't have this access, that's mean disinformation, misleading rumors will be everywhere. How we prepare ourselves, that's the most important thing. So in our network, we have different strategies. I mean, depends about if it's a shutdown or a block. There's a block to access to social media platforms. But in general, the most important is to stock up. Means that you need to prepare your phone with the useful tools you need. I remember some of my friends, he said, internet shutdowns happened and I don't have a VPN. And because the government usually block access to the Apple Store and Google Play, and people can do that, especially for iPhone users, for the iOS, they can download, application from outside Apple Store. That will be difficult for them, almost impossible. So that's why it's very important to prepare ourselves to download all the applications we need. For example, for the VPN, we have the Tor, we have the Tunnel Beer, we have the Siphon. We have different good example of VPN, open source, secure, and trusted. And also, it's very important to keep up to date when it comes to use these VPNs. For example, recently, one of the biggest secure VPN before we use ExpressVPN sold to a private company in Israel, and they are violating. They have a history of violation, and here we need to update ourselves with the new tools and remove the old tools that not secure anymore, as an example. And I hope that this will not happen with Tunnel Beer or any other VPN. That's kind of a question maybe to Shams, but also it's very important to pack up. Back up your data is very important to have it in a USB. I remember during a full shutdown in Iraq, we used two strategy. The first one, it's we have Kurdistan region. It's 5 hours to reach Kurdistan region by car. So what we use, we document what's happening during the revolution, send this person into Kurdistan, and Kurdistan, they have access to internet because central government, they don't have control on Kurdistan region, especially when it comes to the internet. So they still have access. We download the data from there and upload it again. So we use that strategy also to keep, to keep connected at least with the international audience. Second strategy, it's using phone calls, back to the old school, phone calls and SMS without sharing sensitive information, because we know this is not, a secure method, but it's important at least to share some of the news that not linked to personal information. But when it comes to the block to access to social media platforms, I remember a funny tool Iraqis invented. There is a very popular game, I think maybe in Africa too, PUBG game, and it's I don't play it, but I know the kind of this game. I mean, it's a game. People, they fight each other using different weapons and things like that. So and there is a communication inside the game. People, they can communicate. So during the play, they share information because PUBG is not blocked during blocking access to social media platforms. So I mean, using these kind of tools, it's really, I mean, a funny way to share information. That's mean people, they are trying to connect. So losing the connection to the internet is not just losing a connection, it's losing community together. People, they want to connect together. So this kind of strategy, it's it's important. If you are in a small, in a closed network and in a small space, you can use Bridgify as an example. It's a network based on peer-to-peer connection, based on Bluetooth. That's also a good way to share some information. I remember that in Tahrir Square in Baghdad, in a protest, the protester created a local radio station because government shut down everything, and people inside the protest disconnected. They don't know when they will attack. And by the way, there is always a connection between internet shutdown and increase in the violation of human rights, attack on protesters, sending militias, things like that. So there is a connection. That's why it's not a random shutdown happening. I know I have 1 minute. This local radio station, we know from outside, so we are helping from outside the country, helping the people inside. Try to call the operator for the local radio inside Tahrir Square, and we tell them what's happening, what is the news, things like that. And they broadcasting to the protesters to calm down or to share trusted news at least. And what else? Finally, the international SIM card. International SIM card very helped us to get access to internet during full shutdown through roaming. So, for example, we start sending international SIM cards from Jordan, from Turkey, to different countries that still work inside Iraq. So to keep these, at least the main key players inside Iraq, to keep connected to the internet and keep us feeding with the news. I think this kind of, a very quick strategy we used to keep people connected and keep everything on.
Thank you very much, Hamzat, for the very practical recommendations you've given. I'm sure those listening have taken some notes and they'll prepare ahead of time in the event of a shutdown wherever they are located. Okay, 5 minutes to end. I'm going back to Susan to give one recommendation that is on top of your heart, that if I don't make you say it, you'll not be happy with me. And the same for all speakers, except Hamzat, who has already done his. So 5 seconds for your recommendation. All right, Susan.
Hi.
I don't see any questions in the chat button, so we can wrap up and end the session. So over to you, Susan, sorry.
Thank you. So I would recommend that people need to work together. For me, the strongest thing is working in numbers. For the experience that we had, this was the first time that we worked with the Keep It On campaign, and we got a lot of support, both locally and internationally. We collaborated with the Keep It On members in Zambia, and also those that are from the international community supported us with our work. So I feel like when you work alone, you sound like someone who's just shouting on an anthill, but with collective effort, it really simplifies your work in so many ways. So thank you very, very much to you, Felicia, in particular, and to the Access Now team for all the work that you helped us, get moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you're most welcome. Okay. Shams, do you have any additional thing? I think you also gave some recommendations, but go ahead. 5 seconds.
Okay, Hamzou's touched on this briefly, but as you prepare ahead of time for a shutdown scenario or an event like that, please download more than one VPN because it's important to have some on hand, and not all are created equal, of course, in case one is being targeted more than another. But I also really want to note that there's a lot of really great VPNs out there, but then there's also a lot of shady ones, unfortunately. And there's a lot of mistrust in the VPN industry, and I think that some of it is in fact warranted. So please make sure when you go to choose a VPN provider that they have regular transparency reports, they conduct third-party security audits, and if you're in civil society and you see that there is a VPN provider that's quite popular that's not doing this, call them out on it, because you're in a position to do so because you work with folks in high risk situations. So download loads of them, but make sure they're great ones that really care about their users. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Abdul, I think you didn't give any recommendation.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I think that, as Susan said, is the same. We need collaboration, because without collaboration, there's no impact. So as here in Chad, we say that Indian white, in Chad in Arabic, Eid white might be suffix. One hand cannot clap. So we need to work together and to impact the world, to impact our community. So I need to step there, and we need to delete from our dictionary the word internet shutdown. We don't need to hear that. Yes. Internet access, yes. Internet shutdown, no. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we hope the perpetrators of internet shutdowns are listening closely. All right. I'm very grateful for spending your 1 hour, 30 minutes with me to discuss all these important issues. For our cherished audience, we are grateful for your time as well. And what I'm taking away from this session is that collaboration is very important. We cannot fight this fight alone. And as you can see from the panelists we had, they are from different diverse groups, but we are all working towards the same objective. So let's work together as a community. There's also the need for research on the issue so that we can identify new trends and upcoming issues with regards to internet shutdowns. Awareness raising is very important. And that is why we have a toolkit on how to advocate against elections. Marianne, if you can drop that link here. So if you have elections coming up in your country, wherever on the globe, please reach out to us, and we are happy to work with you to plan ahead, as we all heard on this session. Let's plan ahead. Don't be taken by surprise during an internet shutdown. So thank you so much, CPESA, for giving us this opportunity to discuss this threat to democracy. And thank you always for convening us at Fifth Africa to have such important discussions. And we look forward to more of this and such collaborations. And I wish you a fruitful Fifth Africa 2021.
Thank you
Goodbye,
very much.
and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, everyone, to our panelists and attendees. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.